finally. So this is where all the cool kids hang out. Thanks for inviting me over, man.
It's nice to have you here.
You're welcome. I'm
you're
glad
welcome.
to have you.
It's nice to have you here. And
yeah,
in addition to the cool kids, we also do SportsCenter here.
We do a lot of good SportsCenter here. Yes, tournament 2 days away, or a day even. But we've got big news about one of the teams that could win it all. Also, a behind-the-scenes conversation with Ja Morant. Special kid, but you want to talk about money first.
Yes. There's two ways to look at the lead story. One is the largest sports contract in the history of our continent, or the other one is a team in the second largest market just increased payroll by only $2,750,000 a year. Almost out of nowhere, the Angels today hooked Mike Trout with a 10-year extension. And either way you put it, the man, the stats test, the experts test, the eye test, all agree best all-around player of the generation, already one of the greatest of all time, is staying where he is through the season of 2030. Days ago, the word was Mike Trout would not be grabbing an extension offer. This morning, ESPN's Jeff Passan with the electrifying scoop. He's agreed to it, $430 million. And guess who's delighted? His teammate, who once signed for $240 million.
Just really pumped up, really excited. I mean, to be able to finish my career here, with the best player in the game, and I mean, well-deserved. I'm so happy for Hank and his family, but I think the most important thing being the best in the game, in the business is he's a better person. It's scary then, that he wants to get better. 27, and wants to get better. I don't know how much better he can get, but it's just really humbling.
The deal might make Bryce Harper dream of renegotiating a $430 million package spanning 12 seasons, 30% bigger than Harper's, an AAV of $35.8 a year, the $33.25 he was already making this season and next, and then an average of $36 million a year for another decade. Artie Moreno bought the Angels for $184 million. The scooper, Jeff Passan, in a moment. First, the story of the big money for the big fish from Tim Kirkchin.
It is the largest contract in the history of professional sports, by a wide margin, the largest in baseball history. And Mike Trout, now and likely for the duration of it, is worth every penny.
Back out it is Trout, back it goes, it is caught! Oh, what a catch by Mike Trout!
Trout is a transcendent player, a breathtaking combination of power, speed, and defense. He is Mickey Mantle come back to life, and given his diligence, durability, and focus, he is on his way to perhaps achieving the impossible, someday passing Willie Mays as the greatest center fielder of all time.
Way back in center field, way back, it is.
Best thing about playing with Mike Trout.
Trout arguably has had the greatest first 7 full seasons of anyone in history. He made 7 All-Star teams.
Oh, that's gone.
Won 2 MVPs, finished second 4 times, and fourth once. He finished in the top 2 of the MVP voting in each of his first 5 full seasons. No one else in Major League history did that in his first 2 full seasons.
He's the best player I've ever seen.
Trout is 27, he weighs 235 pounds, and is among the game's fastest players. And he keeps getting better. He is not one to be changed by success, fame, or money. He is always the same. An aw-shucks kind of guy who just wants to play, win, and improve.
That one is gone. Out of here, home run Mike Trout.
There is no chance that, say, 8 to 10 years into this 12-year deal, that the Angels will have any regrets. They secured the best player in baseball, a man on a path to being one of the best of all time.
Path has about 3 more steps to take. Little in Sports produces Wait What anymore, but the tweet our Jeff Passan sent out at 10:14 prevailing local time this morning did that exactly. So, Jeff, I thought there wasn't going to be one. Wait, what?
And you know what? The Los Angeles Angels, Keith, did not think there was going to be one as recently as yesterday afternoon. Wow. That's how quickly this deal came together. There was a chasm between these two sides, and understandably so. Mike Trout could have gone out onto the free agent market after the 2020 season. And if he continued to play the way he has the first 7 full seasons of his career, asked for $500 million, and not done so with a little wink or a little chuckle, but done so in all earnestness. So to ask the Angels for that was not a terribly unreasonable thing to do. They found that middle ground, though, and they figured out $430 million is the right place.
Now, circling back to my contrarian point, $430 million, it's the greatest contract in human history. The Angels will go undefeated for 12 years, or the team that shares the second largest market in the country has now only raised its payroll by $2.75 million a year, and the game's greatest player, who only has 15 postseason plate appearances in his career, just joined himself at the hips, both of them, to an underachieving franchise, and when it's all over, he'll be Ernie Banks and never be in a World Series. Is there not some element, at least, of my cynical point in this?
I was going to say, womp, 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 Keith.
Yes,
My goodness. This guy is supposed to be a day of celebration. And look, Mike Trout has not been a postseason success at this point. I get that. They've got a good farm system. They've got money to spend. And in the end, I think we are going to get to see much more of him in October in playoff baseball.
Boy, I hope so. And let me introduce myself, Jeff. My name's Olbermann. I'm cynical for a living since 1959. Thanks for some of your time on the Crazy Day, and congrats again on the scoop, and your Trout money is in the mail. But is it enough? What if it's an either or, all the money or no glory and all the money and most of the glory? We'll ask a man who got both. ESPN's newest free agent signing, formerly the highest paid player in baseball, Ryan Howard, coming up. Sage?
Developing story here on SportsCenter. 9 days from now, Robert Kraft is scheduled to be arraigned on 2 misdemeanor charges of soliciting prostitution. But the longtime Patriots owner could avoid being charged altogether. Today, news broke that prosecutors have actually offered to drop all charges against him with one big caveat. Michelle Steele explains.
When prosecutors announced that Robert Kraft was charged with solicitation and engaged in sex acts with employees at the Orchids of Asia Day Spa in Jupiter, Florida, they were asked about the possibility of a plea deal.
We don't talk about the status. That goes into too much detail that I can talk about this time.
Details are now emerging about a deal on the table for the NFL's most successful owner. Today, authorities confirming that Kraft and the other men who have been charged are being offered essentially a plea bargain. Prosecutors would drop the charges, but in return, Kraft and his fellow defendants would have to admit they would have been proven guilty at trial. Perhaps most critically for a well-known figure like Kraft, if he accepts the deal, videotape evidence of him most likely would be sealed under Florida law. Kraft and his legal team are considering the plea, but time is ticking. His arraignment in Palm Beach County, Florida is next week, one day after the NFL owners' meetings, where Kraft typically enjoys status as one of the most influential owners in the league. Now, in response to an inquiry, Kraft's attorneys are not commenting on this case. I'm Michelle Steele, ESPN.
All right, thanks, Michelle. ESPN legal analyst and Outside the Lines host Ryan Smith joins us now. And Ryan, when the charges were initially filed, Kraft's team said, quote, he did nothing illegal. So if you were one of Kraft's advisors, what would you recommend he do?
Well, Sage, that depends on whether or not he wants to clear his name or clear this case. If he wants to clear the case, I would recommend this is a pretty good deal because it's a fairly standard one from prosecutors. Based on the reports, it would include some community service, some classes, a little fine. That's the kind of thing that typically happens in these cases. But the big deal for him is that tape. If they agree as part of this deal to seal that tape, it never gets out. That was a huge, potentially damaging PR situation for him. And not only that, you avoid a trial, which is also very big, the very thing he wants to avoid.
So those would definitely be wins, Ryan, but there's always a downside with deals like this. What, in your mind, is the biggest downside to accepting it? Well,
the biggest thing is he mentioned that he did nothing illegal, and now he would essentially be saying, hey, if we were in trial, it wouldn't look very good for me. So right there, he suffers in the public eye. But even bigger than that is the NFL, because unlike some of the other people who are being offered this deal, he has to answer to somebody else, the league, who not only will look at the facts, but also can punish him whether he is convicted or not. That means one of the facts they will look at is that document if he agrees to it and say, oh, you said you would be guilty if this went to trial. That could affect what kind of punishment they put on him, and it could affect possibly his status in the league. Two things I think he is very concerned about.
And you expect this to be resolved, this decision to be made before next Thursday's scheduled court date, correct? The 28th, I think?
There's a very real possibility that could happen.
Okay, Ryan Smith with the very latest on Robert Kraft. Ryan, thank you. In the meantime, let's recap where we currently stand. Kraft was named by police as one of over 200 people who engaged in sex acts with employees at targeted South Florida massage parlors. He did plead not guilty to 2 misdemeanor counts of first-degree solicitation. He's scheduled to be arraigned March 28th, and if convicted, Kraft could face 1 year in jail, a $5,000 fine, and 100 hours of community service.
Still ahead on a truly big show. The season ended today. Boy, would travel reservations get screwed up. But also, who would be your MVP? We'll ask Stephen A. And in a month, baseball owners have committed to pay $1 billion